You don't get what you want because you haven't yet become the person who deserves it. I learned it the hard way. There was a time when I blamed the economy, blamed my job, blamed my upline, blamed the government. I even blamed the weather. And then I met a man who handed me the truth like a slap across the face. He said, Jim, if you want the things on the higher shelf, you better get a ladder. And that ladder starts with your own philosophy. Not talent, not luck, not inheritance. Philosophy. You see, I had ambition, I had dreams, but I had no philosophy. And when you mix big ambition with bad philosophy, you get disaster. I used to say things like, if I had more money, I'd be a better person. He said, no, Jim, if you were a better person, you'd have more money. Ouch. That one stung. But it stuck. That was the beginning of everything changing. Now let me tell you something I learned. You can't get whatever you want until you understand this very simple equation. Not economic, not political, not mystical. This equation is value makes the difference in results. If you want more, you must become more. Don't wish it was easier, wish you were better. And don't just write that down, internalize it, digest it, tattoo it on your calendar, make it your morning alarm, because that one idea changes your whole approach to life. I remember being broke, not poor, broke. That's different. Poor is a state of mind. Broke is a temporary condition. I was 25, broke, married, behind on promises, and making excuses for all of it. And then I realized something dark, something sharp. Nobody was coming to fix me. There was no cavalry, no miracle raise, no last-minute rescue. There was only one guy who could turn it around, and he was wearing my shoes. So I got to work, not just on my business, on my mind. And that, my friend, is where getting whatever you want begins. You want health? Start with philosophy. What do you believe about discipline, energy, rest, food? You want love? What do you believe about trust, giving, patience, ego? You want wealth? What do you believe about values, service, multiplication, ownership? See, most people never inspect their beliefs. They just walk around with a philosophy they picked up like lint on a sweater, random, sticky, and slowing them down. But I started swapping mine out, one by one, like rusted out tools in the shed. Let me give you one. I used to believe that rich people were just lucky, that money was evil, that success meant you were probably dishonest. And guess what? As long as I believed that, my wallet agreed. Because how can you chase what you despise? You can't. Your mind will sabotage you every time. You'll delay, you'll retreat, you'll waste. Because you're not chasing a dream, you're running from a contradiction. So I changed it. I started to believe that money was good, if used well, that wealth was a tool, not a scorecard. That I could become wealthy by becoming valuable. Now that's a game I could play. You ask Jim, how do I become valuable? Answer, learn to work harder on yourself than you do on your job. That's it. Your income rarely exceeds your personal development. Not for long. If you earn more than you grow, you'll eventually shrink, and the money will follow. Now this is important. I know people who went from nothing to everything, and then right back to nothing. Why? Because they had the money but not the character. They had the success but not the structure. They had the dream but not the foundation to hold it. That's why I say the goal is not just to get rich. The goal is to become a person who can't help but get rich. Because of your skills, because of your habits, because of your value to the marketplace. Now here's something funny about the marketplace. It doesn't respond to need. It responds to value. Try walking into a bank and saying, I need $10,000. They'll say, that's nice. What do you have for collateral? Nothing, but I really need it. That's not how it works. The world isn't cold, it's just structured. And if you want to play the game, you've got to learn the rules. Let me give you a few of mine. Rule 1, don't wait for motivation. Create discipline. Motivation comes and goes. Sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not. But discipline is what builds a life. It's brushing your teeth, making the call, doing the reps, reading the book when you don't feel like it. Discipline is showing up tired, bored, annoyed, underpaid, and still showing up right. Rule 2, don't wish for less problems. Wish for more skills. Your problems don't go away, they just evolve. The guy who's trying to pay rent has problems. The guy running $1 billion fund has problems. Different shape. Same game. What matters is your capacity. If you can grow stronger than your problems, you'll rise. If you don't, they'll eat you. So get stronger. Rule 3. Don't join the complainers. Join the builders. It's easy to find people who complain. Just open your window. They're everywhere. Harder to find people who build. They're quieter, busier, more focused. But if you hang around builders, you'll start to believe in bricks again. You'll stop whining and start laying stone. I remember talking to a man who said, "Jim, I've tried everything." I said, "Everything?" He said, "Well, I've tried a lot." I said, "How many books have you read this year?" He said, "One." I said, "That's not everything. That's one thing." See, the problem is never that we've tried everything. The problem is we quit trying after the first rejection, or the second no, or the third failed attempt. But if you're serious, if you really want that life, then you keep going. You read 10 books. You call 100 people. You work 12 hours. You sleep less. You cut the junk. You show the world you mean business. You want to know what separates the ones who get what they want from the ones who don't. It's not talent, not timing, not connections. It's the decision to raise their standard. Your current life is exactly what you tolerate. The job, the body, the bank account, the relationships, all of it. You want more, then require more from yourself. Hold yourself to a higher bar than the world does. If they want 5 hours, you give 6. If they want a report, you give a proposal. If they want a good job, you deliver excellence. And if nobody notices, you keep going. Because you're not doing it for applause. You're doing it because that's who you are becoming. And here's a funny law. The world eventually pays attention to those who refuse to be ignored. It may take 6 months, or 6 years, but they always notice. They notice the consistent one. The reliable one. The one who doesn't flinch when it's hard. Who doesn't whine when it's late. Who doesn't fold when it's dark. That person wins. Maybe not today, but eventually. And not because he was lucky, but because he was ready. I've met janitors who became CEOs. I've met broke immigrants who built empires. I've seen the quiet guy in the back of the room become the speaker. And you know what they all had in common? They decided. They didn't wait for permission. They didn't wait for a sponsor. They didn't wait for someone to say now's the time. They just started. And they kept going. That's the whole trick, my friend. Decide. Start. Keep going. The rest is just tools. And when it gets hard, and it will, remember what I told myself all those years ago when I was broke, tired, uncertain, embarrassed. If I don't change, nothing will. That was my moment. Yours can be today. All it takes is a shift in your philosophy, because when your philosophy changes, your attitude changes. And when your results change, well, you know what happens next. But here's the catch. Most people miss. The world doesn't hand you rewards just because you've changed once. You have to stay changed. That's the test. It's easy to be excited on day one. Easy to journal your new life, plan your goals, stack your books, share your quotes. But then Monday hits, then the client cancels, then the numbers don't move, then your energy fades, and the world leans in just to see if you were serious. That's when it happens. Most people slide back quietly, softly, like a car rolling downhill when the brake lets go. But the ones who win, the ones who really get what they want, they hold the line. They don't just dip their toe in the water, they burn the boats. They say, this is who I am now. And they back it up with behavior. I had to learn that. I'd get excited, I'd start strong, and then I'd let it slide. And one day I realized I was building castles on sand. Temporary, flashy, but always crumbling. So I did the one thing that always works. I went back to principles. Long break. Here's a principle for you. If you want to have more, you must become more. Not once. Daily. Let me show you how I turned that into a routine, not just a phrase. Every morning before the world wakes up, I wake up. Not to check my phone, not to answer email, but to check in with myself. I ask, who am I becoming? Not, what do I want today? But what kind of man am I practicing to be? And then I do the boring things that build an exciting life. Read, reflect, plan, write, think. Because if your morning is accidental, your life will be too. Let me say that again. If your morning is accidental, your life will be too. That little sentence cost me 5 years to learn. Next principle, you become what you practice. That includes what you practice in silence. You practice gossip, you become petty. You practice excuses, you become weak. You practice discipline, you become trusted. You practice generosity, you become remembered. Most people don't realize they're training themselves every day. Every decision is a weight in the gym of character. And the scary part, you don't get to opt out. There's no neutral. You're either getting stronger or you're not. So I asked myself, what am I rehearsing when nobody's watching? The answer was uncomfortable. I was rehearsing distraction, rehearsing blame, rehearsing avoidance. So I changed the script. Let me give you a visual. Imagine two men, same age, same city, same opportunity. One wakes up and checks his phone for 30 minutes, scrolls, reacts, complains, gets dressed last minute, rushes out, listens to gossip on the way to work, gets frustrated, comes home exhausted, collapses into entertainment. Repeat. The other wakes up 1 hour earlier, reads 10 pages, writes a thought, plans his top 3 moves, listens to a business podcast on the way to work, moves with intention, tracks his progress, reflects at night, adjusts, grows. Same 24 hours, very different trajectory. Now multiply that by 65 days, and you get 2 different lives. People think it takes magic. No, it takes ritual. Ritual shapes identity. Identity shapes outcome. So I built rituals, not rigid ones, not perfection, but structure, momentum. Now you might be wondering, Jim, what if I'm not consistent? Well, then your results won't be either. Let me tell you something sobering. Inconsistency kills dreams faster than failure ever will. Because failure teaches, but inconsistency just wastes. It doesn't give you data, doesn't give you feedback. It just keeps you spinning. I knew a man once who started 5 businesses in 5 years. None succeeded. Not because the ideas were bad, but because he never gave any of them a full season. He kept pulling the plant out of the soil to check the roots. And then he wondered why it didn't grow. Growth takes time, takes attention, takes faith. You don't plant corn on Monday and expect a harvest by Friday. You keep watering, even when nothing seems to be happening. That's called maturity. Which brings me to the next lesson. You don't get what you want. You get what you can handle. That's why life delays success. Because you're not ready yet. Let that sit with you. It's not denial. It's protection. Some of the things you want would destroy you right now. You think you want $1 million business? Try handling $1,000 habit first. You want global influence? Try showing up to your current commitments on time. Life doesn't give you a title. It gives you tests. Pass the small ones, and it'll trust you with more. People think getting what they want is about big moments. It's not. It's about invisible ones. Saying no when no one would notice. Showing up when you could cancel. Writing the thank you note. Fixing the typo. Making the hard call. That's the real work. It's not flashy, but it builds muscle. And that muscle is what holds up the dream. Because once you get what you want, can you keep it? That's the second battle. The first is elevation. The second is endurance. And most people never prepare for that part. I want to tell you something I rarely share. There was a season when I had everything I thought I wanted. Money, travel, recognition, and I started to drift. Not immediately. Slowly, softly. The rituals faded. The phone calls delayed. The ego inflated. Until one day, I looked around and realized I was succeeding outwardly, but shrinking inwardly. I had to pull the brake. Hard. Recenter. Rebuild. Re-earn the very things I thought I had locked down. And you know what I learned? Success doesn't eliminate discipline. It demands more of it. Because the higher you climb, the thinner the air. And the fewer the excuses. So don't think getting there means you're done. Getting there is just a checkpoint, not the finish line. Here's another checkpoint worth mentioning. Identity. See, you can't outperform your identity for long. If you see yourself as average, you'll eventually sabotage excellence. If you see yourself as unworthy, you'll reject success when it arrives. So part of the process is rebuilding the story you tell yourself. Ask, who am I becoming? Not just what am I doing? Who am I becoming? And then act like that version of you already exists. Because guess what? He does. He's just buried under habits that don't belong to him anymore. Let me tell you how I changed mine. Every day I ask 3 questions. What does the future me know that I don't yet see? What would he do today? What do I need to stop making excuses about? I wrote down the answers. acted on them, repeated, day after day, until my actions matched my vision. Now let's get practical. Here are 3 moves you can make this week. Read 30 pages of a personal development book every day. It rewires the mind. Wake up 30 minutes earlier than you do now. Use that time to plan, not react. Set one high standard promise to yourself and keep it, no matter what. It could be no sugar for 7 days, or call one business contact daily. Doesn't matter what. What matters is your follow through, because every time you keep a promise to yourself, you build something more powerful than results. You build credibility, and credibility is what creates momentum. You want momentum? Then keep more promises. That's the real secret. Not apps, not hacks, not tricks, just promises, made and kept. It's the invisible fuel of every high performer I've ever met. And here's the last thing I'll tell you in this moment. Your future doesn't respond to your hopes. It responds to your habits. You can hope all you want. You can visualize. You can manifest. You can chant affirmations until your voice cracks. But if your calendar doesn't change, your life won't either. So look at your next 7 days. What's on it? Who controls it? And if it's not you, then what are we even talking about? Because you don't get whatever you want. You get whatever you're willing to build. And every moment you wait is another moment someone else is building. And every moment you wait is another moment someone else is building. The question is, how much longer are you going to let that happen? You're watching them, liking their videos, reading their books, admiring their habits. But what about yours? See, too many people are spectators in their own life. They sit in the stands, judging, comparing, analyzing, while the real game is happening on the field. I'll say it plainly, spectators don't get paid. Players do. And the only way to become a player is to step in scared, unsure, maybe even unqualified, but willing. I was underqualified. I was scared. I had no money, no following, no confidence, but I was willing. And sometimes that's all life needs, someone who's willing. Willing to look foolish at first. Willing to fail in public. Willing to ask dumb questions. Willing to get rejected, because that's how you earn wisdom. Let me be clear, you don't get wisdom from reading quotes. You get it from living consequences. And most people avoid consequences at all costs. They'd rather read about change than go through it. They'd rather consume content than create action. But action is what separates thinkers from achievers. That's the truth. It's not sexy, but it's solid. Let me give you another truth. Everything you want lives on the other side of personal responsibility. That's the unlock. Until you own everything, your thoughts, your time, your attitude, your output, you are at the mercy of everything else. You'll be a puppet, not a producer. You'll blame the algorithm, the market, the competition, the weather. And guess what? You'll stay exactly where you are. The day my life changed was not the day I got lucky. It was the day I said, Jim, this is all on you now. Not as a burden, but as a gift. Because if it's all on me, then I can change it. Most people think responsibility is a punishment. It's not. It's a power. Because once you stop outsourcing your problems, you reclaim the ability to solve them. It's a quiet shift, but it's the beginning of every breakthrough I've ever seen. Here's what it sounds like. I chose this. I allowed this. I ignored that warning sign. I didn't follow through. That's the voice of transformation, not victimhood, not complaint, ownership. And once you start speaking that way, life starts bending in your direction, not immediately, but steadily. I had to learn that the hard way. I spent years blaming the wrong things, my boss, my background, my lack of contacts, but none of those were the real problem. The real problem, I wasn't becoming the man who could carry the weight of the life I said I wanted. My goals were bigger than my habits. And when that happens, you suffer. Because life doesn't give you what you fantasize about. It gives you what you're fit for. So I got to work. Quiet work. No applause, no stage. Just a man and his habits. And here's another piece most won't tell you. Boredom is part of the process. Let me repeat that. Boredom is part of the process. You'll do the same things over and over. Read again, show up again, track again, stretch again, ask again, and it won't always feel magical. But magic lives inside repetition. The mistake, people stop when it feels boring. They think boredom means something's wrong. No, boredom means you're in the middle of the work. It's the valley between the start and the success. If you push through it, you get strength. If you quit, you stay stuck. Your choice. Let me take it deeper. We don't rise to the level of our dreams. We fall to the level of our systems. That's what people miss. They get inspired, fired up, write 10 new goals, but then they wake up and realize inspiration doesn't wash the dishes, doesn't return the emails, doesn't finish the course. Only systems do. So I started building mine. Not perfect, but consistent. Simple things. Write down my 3 priorities the night before. Review my week every Sunday. Read at least 1 chapter a day. Move my body daily. Track every dollar in or out. These aren't dramatic, they're not headline worthy, but you stack them over time, and they change your destiny, because systems create behavior, and behavior creates outcome. Now let's talk about something you might be facing right now. Impatience. That voice in your head that says, "It's not happening fast enough. I know it. I've heard it." It's the voice that tells you maybe you're doing it wrong. Maybe you should switch paths. Maybe this isn't for you. Ignore that voice. Not forever, but for now, because what you want is not on a timer, it's on a curve. And every curve has a silent phase, where nothing looks different, but everything is different. Because the roots are growing, the character is forming, the soil is settling, and if you dig it up too soon, you'll kill it. So trust the silent phase. Stay planted. Keep watering. Success shows up after the boring part. Now here's the dark truth. Most don't want to say out loud. You might not get applause. You might do all the work, all the reps, all the sacrifice, and nobody claps. Nobody says thank you. Nobody posts about it. And that's when the real question shows up. Why am I doing this? If your answer is for approval, you'll quit. But if your answer is for who I become, you'll keep going. Because character doesn't need credit. It needs consistency. The world is full of talented quitters. They shine for a moment, flash across the sky, then disappear because they chased outcomes, not identity. But the ones who last, they know the truth, that it's not about getting whatever you want. It's about becoming someone who earns it over and over. That's the real reward, not the trophy, not the bonus, not the followers, but the quiet confidence of knowing, I built this, I earned this, I can rebuild it if I have to. That kind of confidence doesn't come from luck. It comes from character. So if you're sitting there right now, wondering if it's worth it, let me say it to you directly. It's worth it. Because the version of you on the other side of this season, he's stronger, wiser, quieter, sharper. He's not dreaming anymore. He's doing, he's not waiting. He's building, he's not talking, he's living. And he's proud of how far you've come. And maybe nobody else says it to you, so I will. You're doing better than you think. You're farther than you were. You're more capable than you realize. But capability is only potential until you prove it. So go prove it. Start the next hour strong. The next decision, the next rep, the next call. Not next week, not tomorrow. Now, because the future belongs to people who act like it already does. That's how you get whatever you want. You decide, you begin, you endure, and then you arrive. Not as a surprise, but as a result. Short outro begins. So wherever you are, however it's going, just remember, it's not about ease. It's about ownership. It's not about timing. It's about tenacity. And it's not about who's ahead. It's about who stays the course. Your results are waiting. They always were. Go earn them.